How do you beat a company that makes $15.5 billion while their rocket explodes? SpaceX controls 60% of the global launch market. Blue Origin? Less than 1%. The brutal truth, SpaceX completed 76 missions this year with a 99.4% success rate. Blue Origin managed just one orbital launch, even when Ship 36 exploded on June 18th, destroying the entire test site. SpaceX is still dominating every competitor. But here's what's really shocking about this space war. Let's dive right in. The night everything changed. June 18th, 2025, 11 p.m., Texas. Ship 36 sits in the test pad, ready for what should have been routine. A simple 6-engine static fire test, nothing more. Instead, it became the explosion that proved SpaceX's absolute dominance. Picture this scene. A rocket worth millions of dollars literally tears itself apart. Fire everywhere, metal flying through the air. The entire test stand destroyed. Any normal company would be finished. Bankrupt, done. But SpaceX, they're already planning the next test. Why? Because while their competitors hide from failure, SpaceX turns disasters into pure data. And that's exactly why they're humiliating everyone else. The anatomy of pure destruction. Here's what really happened that night. Ship 36 wasn't just randomly exploding. This was precise engineering failure that tells us everything about how SpaceX operates. The explosion came in two devastating waves. First wave, near the nose where the payload bay sits. A COV tank burst under pressure. Now, a COPV is a composite overwrapped pressure vessel. Think of it like a super strong balloon, but instead of party helium, it's holding pressurized gas at incredible force. When this thing failed, it didn't just pop, it acted like a bomb, ripping through nearby tubing, destroying structures. Within seconds, liquid methane started mixing with oxygen. You know what happens when rocket fuel meets oxygen, right? The second explosion was massive, even bigger than the first. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. The billion-dollar learning machine. While Blue Origin spends years and years and more years perfecting designs on paper, SpaceX builds real rockets and destroys them on purpose. Ship 36 was the fourth Starship failure in 2025 alone. Flights 7, 8, and 9 all ended in disaster. Any reasonable person would ask, how is this success? The answer changes everything you think you know about the space industry. SpaceX doesn't just test components in safe little labs, they test entire systems under real conditions. Brutal conditions. When Ship 36 exploded, SpaceX engineers got more valuable data in 30 seconds than most companies gather in years of computer simulations. Think about Ship 36's journey. It passed proof testing in April, got its engines installed successfully. June 15th, rolled out to the pad perfectly. June 16th, single-engine test fired without any issues. Everything looked normal. Everything seemed fine. Until it wasn't. This is exactly how SpaceX wants it. They push systems to their absolute breaking point. Because here's what their competitors still don't understand. Failure is the fastest teacher in the universe. The numbers that shock everyone. While SpaceX rockets explode, their bank account explodes with profits. $15.5 billion in revenue this year. Blue Origin, still burning through Jeff Bezos's personal fortune, with nothing, absolutely nothing, to show for it. The market share tells the brutal truth. SpaceX commands over 60% of global commercial launches. Blue Origin, they managed just one orbital mission since January 1. But here's where it gets really embarrassing. SpaceX completed 76 missions by mid-2025 with a 99.4% success rate. Even with explosions, delays, and disasters, they're still the most reliable launch provider on Earth. How is this even possible? The secret lies in their revolutionary testing philosophy, and it's completely destroying the competition. The philosophy that broke everything. Traditional aerospace companies spend decades developing rockets. Decades. They test every single component separately. They run endless computer simulations. They build prototypes that never leave the ground. By the time they're ready to launch, their technology is already outdated. SpaceX flipped this entire model upside down. They build fast, test fast, fail fast, learn fast. Ship 36's explosion taught them more about pressure vessel failures than any laboratory test could ever provide. Real data, real conditions, real results. While Blue Origin's New Glenn took years, literal years, to reach its first orbital flight, SpaceX has already launched hundreds of Falcon 9 missions. They've mastered rocket recovery, crew transport, satellite deployment, all while their experimental Starship program continues breaking new ground. But here's where the story gets absolutely insane. The domino effect nobody expected. That June 18th explosion didn't just destroy a rocket, it damaged the entire test infrastructure. Pipes melted, tanks destroyed, structural components completely wrecked, fires burned for hours. The test stand itself suffered massive damage. For any other company, this would be catastrophic. Months of delays, massive cost overruns, possible program cancellation. SpaceX's response? Flight 10 gets postponed while they repair the damage and improve the design. No panic, no finger pointing, no executives getting fired, just methodical problem solving. This is exactly why SpaceX dominates the space industry. They've built a system that gets stronger with every failure. Every explosion makes them better. Their competitors get weaker with every setback. SpaceX gets stronger. The real competition is embarrassing. Let's talk about what SpaceX is really competing against. It's not just Blue Origin, it's the entire traditional aerospace industry. And they're winning so badly, it's almost painful to watch. Blue Origin has been developing their BE-4 engines for over a decade. A decade. SpaceX developed, tested, and perfected the Raptor engine in half that time. While Blue Origin's New Shepard makes cute little suborbital tourist flights, SpaceX is planning Mars missions. The financial gap is absolutely staggering. Starlink alone generates over $12 billion annually for SpaceX. That's recurring revenue, every month, every year, funding their entire space program. Blue Origin has no comparable income stream. Zero. They're entirely dependent on Jeff Bezos selling Amazon stock and begging for government contracts. Even when Blue Origin wins contracts, they struggle to deliver. Remember the human landing system disaster? Blue Origin lost to SpaceX, spent months protesting like children, eventually got a consolation contract for future missions. Meanwhile, SpaceX is already preparing Starship for lunar operations. The humiliation is complete. The technology gap is insane. Here's where the competition becomes absolutely embarrassing. SpaceX operates multiple rocket systems simultaneously. Right now, today, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, proven workhorses, launching constantly. Crew Dragon regularly flies astronauts to the International Space Station. Starlink, over 7,600 satellites deployed and counting. What does Blue Origin have? New Shepard for space tourism, New Glenn with one single orbital flight. Paper concepts for Blue Moon and Orbital Reef. Paper concepts. The operational gap is enormous and growing wider every single day. SpaceX launches almost weekly. Blue Origin launches occasionally. SpaceX generates billions in revenue. Blue Origin burns through billions in funding. But here's the most shocking part of this entire story. The government contracts tell everything. You'd think government contracts would level the playing field, right? Wrong, dead wrong. SpaceX has consistently won the highest profile contracts. International Space Station resupply missions, commercial crew program, Artemis lunar lander, even military contracts for Starlink communications. In 2023, the Pentagon awarded SpaceX a $537 million contract to provide Starlink services to Ukrainian forces. This isn't just about rockets anymore. SpaceX has created an integrated space infrastructure that generates revenue from multiple sources. Blue Origin's government contracts, they got the Blue Moon contract after losing the initial competition. Orbital Reef remains a concept. Their military contracts are limited in scope and value. The pattern is crystal clear. SpaceX wins the contracts that matter. Blue Origin gets the leftovers. The speed that destroys competition. While Blue Origin announces ambitious timelines, SpaceX delivers results. They're aiming for 170 launches in 2025. That's more than 3 launches per week. The logistics alone are mind-blowing. Multiple launch pads, rocket recovery systems, payload integration facilities, ground support equipment. SpaceX has built an entire industrial ecosystem around space launch. Blue Origin? Still working on their first orbital rocket. The development timeline for New Glenn stretched across multiple years. Engine delays, design changes, testing setbacks became routine. This isn't just about rockets, it's about organizational efficiency. SpaceX has created a culture of rapid iteration and continuous improvement. Blue Origin operates like a traditional aerospace company. Lengthy development cycles, risk-averse decision-making, bureaucratic processes, and they're getting destroyed because of the Starlink weapon nobody saw coming. Here's what really separates SpaceX from everyone else. The secret weapon that changes everything. Starlink. This isn't just satellite internet, it's a strategic advantage that makes competition impossible. Starlink provides SpaceX with steady, recurring revenue, over $12 billion annually. This funds their entire operation, including Starship development. They don't need to wait for government contracts. They don't need commercial customers. They have their own unlimited cash flow. But it's more than money. Starlink gives SpaceX regular launch opportunities. Every Starlink mission tests their systems, trains their crews, improves their processes. They're essentially paying themselves to get better at launching rockets. Blue Origin has no equivalent, no recurring revenue stream, no operational experience at scale, no integrated business model. This is why SpaceX's explosion-filled testing program works. They have the financial stability to fail fast and learn quickly. Their competitors? They can't afford to fail, so they never learn. The Starlink weapon nobody saw coming. Here's what really separates SpaceX from everyone else. The secret weapon that changes everything. Starlink. This isn't just satellite internet. It's a strategic advantage that makes competition impossible. Starlink provides SpaceX with steady, recurring revenue. Over $12 billion annually, this funds their entire operation. Including Starship development, they don't need to wait for government contracts. They don't need commercial customers. They have their own unlimited cash flow. But it's more than money. Starlink gives SpaceX regular launch opportunities. Every Starlink mission tests their systems, trains their crews, improves their processes. They're essentially paying themselves to get better at launching rockets. Blue Origin has no equivalent, no recurring revenue stream, no operational experience at scale, no integrated business model. This is why SpaceX's explosion-filled testing program works. They have the financial stability to fail fast and learn quickly. Their competitors? They can't afford to fail, so they never learn. The culture that wins everything. Most companies fear failure. SpaceX weaponizes it. Every explosion, every anomaly, every setback becomes a learning opportunity. Ship 36's destruction provided invaluable data about pressure vessel failures, structural design limits, and safety protocols. This culture extends throughout the entire organization. Engineers are encouraged to push boundaries. Test pilots volunteer for risky missions. The entire company operates on one principle. Controlled failure leads to ultimate success. Blue Origin operates completely differently. They prioritize safety over speed, perfection over iteration, caution over boldness. These aren't necessarily bad qualities, but they don't win in a rapidly evolving industry. The results speak for themselves. SpaceX has revolutionized space launch. Blue Origin is still trying to reach orbit consistently. What this really means for everyone. This space industry humiliation isn't just about rockets and revenue. It's about fundamentally different approaches to innovation. SpaceX embraces uncertainty, uses failure as a tool, moves fast and breaks things. Their competitors avoid risk, move slowly, play it safe, and they're getting absolutely destroyed because of it. SpaceX isn't just a launch company anymore. They're building the infrastructure for humanity's expansion into space. Rockets, satellites, ground systems, life support technology. Blue Origin talks about similar goals, but their execution lags far behind their ambitions. Grand visions without corresponding results. The question isn't whether SpaceX will continue dominating. The question is whether anyone can adapt fast enough to compete with them. Because right now, the gap is getting wider every single day.
So here we are,
SpaceX didn't just beat the competition, they redefined what competition even means. While others planned, SpaceX executed. While others feared failure, SpaceX embraced it. While others burned money, SpaceX generated billions. The humiliation is complete, but this raises a bigger question. What happens when one company controls humanity's path to the stars? Nolan SpaceX is no longer just launching rockets. They're building the infrastructure for our multi-planetary future. Starlink connects Earth. Starship will connect worlds. But should we be concerned about this level of dominance, or grateful that someone finally cracked the code? Here at Space Corps, we're tracking every move in this space revolution, because what happens next will determine whether we become a spacefaring civilization or remain trapped on one planet. What do you think? Is SpaceX's dominance good for humanity's future or dangerous? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want to stay ahead of the space race that's reshaping our world, you know what to do.